Hello, I'm Hojo.
I'm Hunnsy.
Welcome to this, the 23rd episode of Hojo and Huntsy's Hard Rock House, the safe space for old rock gumbies, just like us, where if it's too loud, you're too cold. Hunnsy, I've had the worst cold this week.
I think a lot of people have, haven't they? Have you got COVID?
No, I don't think I got COVID. I don't know, do I? Because nobody tests for COVID anymore, as far as I'm aware. But it was blooming pissing me off, I've got to say.
Well, that's because you came to England.
I made the foolish error of coming to England. And then on the way back, I started feeling a bit dicky. So the last 3 days has been hard. I don't know if you can still hear it in my voice.
I can. That might suit your singing voice, though. Make you sound a little bit more husky, a bit more raspy. But the gig's all right. Let's do a shameless plug for your band, Dawn After Dark.
Yeah, shameless plug for Dawn After Dark. Yes, I was in England to do 2 gigs, one in Cambridge, one in Birmingham. Good gigs. Birmingham was brilliant, actually. It's a wonderful venue called the Castle and Falcon. Anybody who ever wants to go and see bands in a superb live venue should go to the Castle and Falcon in Birmingham. It's a really great place.
Well, and it hasn't closed down. That's a bonus.
Well, it sort of has and it hasn't, because actually it's an old pub that was bought by a venue. And so while it looks like a pub and there's a bar area at the front of it that is very like a pub, it doesn't function as a pub. It functions as a venue. So it only opens when bands are playing.
All right, okay.
But the feel of it is like a traditional British pub, which is great.
Merch? How do you do on merch?
Brilliant. Really good.
Yeah?
Can't give you the figures because then the taxman will be after us. But yeah, we did well. Excellent. So we're very happy. So lots of people walking around Birmingham in Dawn After Dark shirts, hopefully this week.
Oh, it's 1989 all over again.
Yeah. What about you? I heard you did a gig.
Yes, I did a gig last Saturday night. It's not as glamorous as what yours sounds like. Mine was in a really shit pub in London.
Goats in Trees, live.
Ghosts in Trees live, my little covers band that I'm in. It was someone's birthday party. This pub we played in, it's one of those pubs that you see in residential urban areas. It's massive, and they've got like 14 pool tables, 9 screens showing all kinds of sports. They've got fruit machines and all that sort of stuff. And it's got a flat roof, so never go to a pub with a flat roof.
Because that there is the air of violence hanging heavy?
Absolutely. They attract the wrong type of audience.
They attract the wrong crowd.
Well, anyway, our guitarist booked us a gig there.
Well done.
It's too bright.
How many people in?
It was a birthday party, so it was quite busy. We were doing this gig. You rehearse a set, right? We're doing these 20 songs, no deviation. But as usual, there's these they're your lot, 2 pissed up French girls, right?
My lot.
They're just continuously in my face going, play Radiohead. Play some Radiohead. And I went, well, do you want us to do the cover version of The Bends by Anthrax? I didn't say that.
It would have been good.
I just said to them, and I wished I'd been able to say it in French, this is a birthday party, not a fucking wake. I'm not playing Radiohead.
So they really pissed you off?
Yeah, they annoyed me a little bit. But they do. People get pissed at gigs and just think you can do anything. I had one person come up to me once and said, will you do Bat Out of Hell? Yeah.
I would love to see you do it. That's a song to conjure with. We have lovely fans who appreciate the music that Dawn After Dark plays and dance about.
I know.
Perfect. Love them.
Little plug for Dawn After Dark there.
We did get a little note, didn't we, asking what the signature music was for our podcast.
We did. I got dropped a little note on our socials of someone saying, what is the intro music to the podcast? I told them it was by some obscure Belgian metal band. I didn't tell them it was by it. No, I told them it was the track Maximum Overdrive by Dawn After Dark. Yeah.
And then he went, awesome.
Yeah, well, did you go and check your download numbers and see whether
it was... absolutely through the roof.
Through
the roof.
Right, are we going to talk about...
Hit me up.
I've been listening to a lot, actually, this week. A lot of metal, a lot of AOR. I've been listening to a lot of AOR.
You are the king of AOR.
Yeah, I think it's probably because the weather's been so miserable, I needed something to cheer me up a little bit. Putting on some Sunshine AOR generally puts a spring in my step. What I'm actually choosing to talk about on this week's pod is definitely not AOR.
Hardcore metal.
Yeah. Came out in 1981, this album.
Long time ago.
It was their debut album, and it's by a band called The Rods.
Oh, The Rods. Yes, I remember The Rods. Well, they might be cancelled these days, though, Hunnsy.
Why?
Oh, there were lots of photos of them in the music press in Sounds with various ladies in states of undress. Do you not remember that?
Oh, they'd be cancelled if they were around today. But then so would half the bands we talk about. I'm a big fan of the Rods. The
Rods from New York State, I do believe.
I think they were from Rochester, yeah. No, actually, I think they were from Cortland Is that a thing?
Oh, okay. Cortland is a place, and do you know why I know Cortland? Because Cortland, I believe, is where Ronnie Dio hails from.
Well, there you
and
go.
That would make sense, wouldn't it?
The front man and the lead man in the Rods was a gentleman, still is a gentleman, called Dave Rock. Is it Feinstein or Feinstein?
Well, I say Feinstein. It's neither Feinstein nor Feinstein. I say Feinstein.
Feinstein. You picked a Feinstein to leave me. Very small man. He was the cousin of Ronnie James Dio. They were both in Elf, weren't they? And
appropriately, yeah. Presumably that would have been why they called themselves Elf, when they realised they were all little fellas.
Yeah. So Dave Rock Feinstein.
Yeah. Good.
Fronted the Rods. They were formed in 1980. I've been listening to their debut album, just called The Rods. Is that a car going around in the background?
It's not a car. You know, I live in the middle of nowhere. That's going to be a big piece of agricultural machinery going past, which, just adds a little authenticity to the pod, doesn't it?
I like it.
Yeah, there you go. So the first album by the Rods called?
The Rods. It was originally called Rock Hard, I believe.
Yeah, and was it a kind of an amalgamation of two separate albums? Or I seem to have a vague recollection when it was released in the UK, it was actually a mix of two different records.
I think they originally released it when it was called Rock Hard. I think they released it independently and then got picked up by, I think it might have been Arista.
It was Arista, I think, yeah.
And they just reordered the tracks a bit and just called it The Rods.
If I remember rightly, they were very much your rootsy power trio. No fancy dressing. No fancy haircuts.
No.
Just get your head down.
I saw them supporting Iron Maiden on the Beast on the Road tour, which was the first tour that they did. Went back and did a bit of digging into it, and I looked at
it. Hey, Paul, that's not good for you.
No, it's not. I felt a bit poorly when I was doing it.
Research?
I know.
Never.
Because I saw them at Newcastle City Hall, supporting Maiden, and I'd never heard them, never seen them. Three-piece, no nonsense, heads down, dandruff flying around everywhere, Dave Rock Feinstein, legs apart, playing his guitar, just banging his head, three blokes making a right racket. But actually, great song.
What was the big song?
Well, there was Crank It Up, wasn't there? That was a big one.
Crank It Up was one, yeah.
There was Power Lover.
Power Lover, I think, was the one that I knew.
I'm a power lover.
That's the fella. He didn't look like he could be a power lover. He looked a bit frail to be a power lover.
So do you know how old he is?
Oh, he's about 108 now, isn't he?
He was born in 1947, so do some maths quickly. He's 76.
Good Lord.
Do you remember what the drummer was called?
Carl Kennedy.
Yeah.
He became a very influential producer in the world of thrash.
Last week's pod, we talked about Anthrax and the Armed and Dangerous EP.
Yeah.
He produced that.
He very much did.
He's still in the band. So Dave and Carl are still in the band. They had a new album out, came out this year.
Never. What was it called?
It was called Rattle the Cage.
Rattle the Cage. It came out this year. The Rods
2024. Obviously, they had a break between 86 and 2011.
What happened to Gary Bordenaro on the bass? Surely, the band's not the same without Gaz.
I haven't got a clue what happened to him. First Rods album. Look, let's not gild the lily here. It was 1981. It hasn't got the best production. Traditional heavy metal. It's heavy metal music. There's some brilliant riffs. There are some gentler moments in there. A bit bluesy and stuff like that in there. But ultimately, they did that thing, I think it was on social media a couple of years ago, where they try to get people to not bang their heads to heavy metal songs.
I didn't see that.
The challenge was, don't bang your head.
I think I could win that hands down.
Oh, you could easily win that. I would find it very...
You'd find it very hard.
Very, very difficult. Especially if they played 5 or 6 tracks off the first Rods album, because you would bang your head continuously.
Shall I tell you a brilliant story about headbanging?
Yeah, go on then.
When I was in England, I was staying in Birmingham with Tony, who's the drummer of Dawn After Dark. Lovely man. Down the road from his house in Kings Heath, Birmingham, there's a place called the Billesley. The Billesley is huge. It's an absolutely immense pub. And downstairs, there's loads of footy screens and jukeboxes and fruit machines and all that kind of stuff. Upstairs, however, 2 nights a week, there's a rock club. I couldn't believe it. I thought rock clubs were a thing of the past.
Really?
The Billesley Rock Club. We went there because the fella knows Tony a little bit and said, anytime you want to come down, we'll stick you on the guest list, come and have a look at the place. So we went down to see.
What were your expectations?
I honestly didn't know. I had no clue. But I liked the idea of there still being a rock club in existence.
Yeah.
Made me very happy. Anyway, we went down and there was a Quo tribute act playing.
Oh,
called The Four Rosses. The Four Rosses, my friend, were absolutely brilliant. They were tight as fuck. They only play 69 to 77.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
They were absolutely fantastic. There's a load of old people in this rock club, and the band is doing their thing. A few people having a little dance. And then it came to the end of the set. I think it was 4,500 times they did.
Brilliant.
And this man lost his shit. He just could not hold himself back. And he was headbanging so hard. He was doing about 180-degree angle. So he headbanged. His back was really going. And he headbanged so far that his head was almost hitting the floor.
Bloody, how old was he?
About 55. He just couldn't hold himself back. And it was a tremendous display of headbanging. He had a Black Sabbath tattoo as well. His girlfriend was just looking on as though she was really, really proud. That's my man.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. What are they called? The Four Rossies?
The Four Rossies. Obviously, if you get a chance to go and see the Four Rossies, man, they were tight. 4 old geezers having the time of their lives.
Well, that's brilliant.
Had you been there and Sweet Sweet Lager had been served to you, when that man went headbang frenzy, I think you might have had to join him.
Yeah, I'd have been there.
When I was there, it did make me wish that I had hair. You know, Jolene Turner wears a wig, don't you?
Yeah.
But he's quite brazen about it, isn't he? He goes, I'm bald, but when I'm doing my rock thing, I wear a wig because it's kind of part of it. I suppose you could argue that that's like your stage clothes, isn't it? You put your stage hair on.
Yeah.
But when I was there, I was really going, oh, wouldn't it be great if you could just grow your hair for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
And you could have an immense amount of hair to headbang to.
Whose hair would you go for? You're in that moment. The Four Rossies are on.
Tom Coughlin.
That's
Just for that song, because he had the longest, straightest hair, didn't he?
I'd probably have Steve Zodiacs from Bardas, I think.
Well, we'd both be in a long-off competition, wouldn't we?
Yeah, either that or Punky Meadows.
Punky Meadows wouldn't look right headbanging
He
the
wouldn't,
status
he
quo,
would it? It'd be quite funny though, wouldn't it?
And his hair wouldn't move, would it?
It wouldn't.
With the amount of hairspray, it just wouldn't move.
No, it wouldn't. I imagine a lot of our single-digit listeners.
Most people who are single-digit listeners will be like us, ex-hairy people.
So if you're an ex-hairy person, I'll put something out on the social. Whose hair would you want? Just for 5 minutes so you could headbang furiously. What have you been listening to?
You'll be surprised to hear this, I suspect, but I've been listening to the album 1984 by Van Halen.
Wow.
That's shocked you, hasn't it?
That has shocked me. What has sparked your reason to listen to that particular?
No, I have no clue. I was faffing about on the streaming platforms today, and for some reason I decided that what I really needed to listen to was Van Halen's 1984. So away I went. I hadn't listened to it in a long, long time. I'll tell you what, I was not disappointed. What I think is really interesting about that album, 1984, is for me, it was a bit of a tipping point album. Obviously, it was a tipping point album because it was the last album that David Lee Roth made with Van Halen before he left. And Roth came on board and things went a little bit downhill, didn't they?
Wasn't their biggest selling album ever? 5150 though.
Absolutely. The Sammy Hagar era, I think, was the most commercially successful. But isn't that obvious? Because most commercially successful usually equals not their best work, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All bands.
Yeah.
So that's not surprising to me. But what I found really interesting about 1984 is I think it was like a turning point when the American showbiz rock fell off a cliff because Van Halen had a brilliant hard rock sound, obviously courtesy of Eddie Van Halen and his extraordinary playing. But they were also very diverse, all over the place. I was listening to the 1984 record. You've got Jump. Then you've got a song like Top Jimmy, which is like really complex, almost jazzy stuff. And then Hot for Teacher, a stadium rock song. And then I'll Wait, which is a bit more pop rock.
Yeah, then Panama.
Yeah, and all these things fit together because they had a sound, they had a feel to them. And David Lee Roth's vocals were very unique. Not the world's greatest singer, I wouldn't say, but he had character in abundance. It really felt like Van Halen was one of the last bands that went in the studio and did whatever the fuck they wanted. And then by 85, when hair metal's coming in, radio is more and more important, MTV is more and more important, a lot of bands started cloning the one element that those media outlets seemed to respond to. So you were ending up with a more homogenized sounding record. You'd have two wimpy ballads on there. You'd have a couple of mid-paced rockers where in the video you'd always have the drummer leering into the camera and doing that twiddling thing with the sticks. You know?
Yeah. I always wanted to be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. It's quite clever, but I never put enough time in. It just felt to me that 1984 was the last time in that era where a band really was just doing whatever they felt was exciting and interesting. And that didn't necessarily mean it had to all be heavy or all not commercial. And Jump was absolutely all over MTV and all over radio, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was,
but it was quite different as a pop rock song.
Prior to that, Van Halen were very much a guitar band. Jump is very much a keyboard-led song. And I remember that at the time, and people were going, what's happened to them? What is this nonsense? And like a keyboard solo.
Where did you stand on the Great Jump debate?
That's a great song.
You all in even then?
Yeah, I was straight in with that record.
The minute I heard it, I didn't go, oh, what's happened to Running with the Devil? I just went, wow, great song.
Yeah, this is just a band who are just doing something different.
They always were a band that went right from one end of the spectrum to the other. There was kind of a bit of hoo-ha when VH2 came out because Dance the Night Away was on it. This is like a little pop song, isn't it? Dance the Night Away.
Yeah.
But it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great song.
It's a great song.
I always thought it was a cover.
Yeah, it does sound like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You could imagine some kind of 60s pop star like Cilla Black or someone singing that, can't you?
I was going to say more along the lines of the Shangri-Las or something like that.
Diamond Dave wasn't just listening to Black Sabbath, was he?
No. Remember he did that Crazy from the Heat record? The whole thing was like swing, wasn't it? Just a gigolo.
Yeah.
Just
a gigolo. Everywhere I go.
But that was because Dave was the entertainer, wasn't he?
He was the ultimate frontman. He was pure LA and it felt really right. I think a lot of other people, when that hair metal thing came along, they were all kind of aping him, not doing their own thing. They were just trying to be Dave. But nobody can be Dave apart from Dave, can they?
You've interviewed him, haven't you?
No, I haven't interviewed him, but I met him.
Ah, what was he like?
Oh, it was brilliant.
Was he very Dave?
Our friend Paul Gurner-Elliott used to know the Van Halen lot. And it would probably be, gosh, maybe 10 or 12, maybe even 15 years ago. Dave wasn't at the height of his fame, it must be said. He was playing in Wolverhampton. It's not a very David Lee Roth place to play. Apologies to the single-digit listener in Wolverhampton. But Wolverhampton and David Lee Roth, they're not a match made in heaven, are they? Gunnar and I decided we'd go up, and Gunnar went, yeah, I've squared it. We're going to go, and we're going to watch the show, and we're going to meet Dave afterwards. And I said, well, I'm in. I'm all in for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Meet Dave, brilliant. So we go to the show. Afterwards, we got into the inner sanctum. And obviously someone had forewarned Diamond Dave that we were going to be there. And he ushered us into his dressing room. And he was charm itself, really funny, fully smiley, the full DLR routine.
Yeah.
And he was wisecracking and giving you a drink and this and that and the other. And it was brilliant because obviously he'd said to whoever person said, you know, hey, Dave, you know, part of your PR thing, you got to talk to these two rock journalists who are quite important, blah, blah, blah. Not really. Oh, fuck, do I really? All right. Okay, I'll do my shtick. And he did about 10 minutes, really funny. Yeah. And then it was almost like someone had switched him off. Because he went, oh, guys, great, so fantastic, yeah. Anyway, time for you to go. And we were ushered out after about 10 minutes of DLR.
Oh,
and we just went, that's exactly what we wanted. Yeah. 10 minutes of him doing the full Hollywood razzmatazz.
Yeah.
And then subtext, can you please fuck off now?
Oh, that story makes you go, that's what I always imagined, David Lee Roth.
Oh, no, I loved it. Yeah. If he'd just gone on and on, being a bit desperate about wanting to hang out with two blokes who couldn't care less about, he would have gone down in my estimation. Yeah. But the full razzle-dazzle, followed by, right, time for you to go, was awesome. Oh, absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant.
I'd forgotten all about that story, so a good story to tell on the back of the fact that I, for reasons unknown, was drawn towards Van Halen's 1984 album. It was always a naughty record, wasn't it? Because it had a little cherub smoking a fag on the front.
Yeah.
That'd never fly these days, would it?
Wasn't it slightly inspired by Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell, which got not cherubs, but nuns smoking cigarettes on the front cover?
Nuns having a fag. Funnily enough, this is a bizarre coincidence. Nuns having a fag. Yeah. For the American single-digit listeners, that has not the meaning that you think. A fag is our English term for a cigarette. I was in a place called Stockport about 6 weeks ago in the north of England, and I was walking around with my wife, the lovely Louise, and we looked over a bridge that we were on, down onto a street below. And Lou said to me, look at that, a nun having a fag. Who would have thought? And it was literally a girl sat at the side of the street having a cigarette in full nun's gear. And Lou said, obviously this isn't going to be a real nun. There must be some filming going on down there.
Yeah.
So anyway, we walked down and lo and behold, it was somebody filming a Netflix series. And this girl was obviously playing a nun and she was having a break while they were setting up the next scene and she was there having a fag and we had a chat with her.
Did you tell her she looks like someone from the...
If I only had thought of it, I would have told her, you remind me of a person sitting on a Black Sabbath album sleeve there.
Yeah.
But that goes to show, doesn't it? 6 degrees of separation. There you go. I did see a nun having a fag.
But going back to 1984, I think what was interesting about that, it was like almost like the end of Van Halen as we knew it. Well, it was the end of Van Halen
as we knew it. Because obviously, as we know, it was all, are you Van Hagar?
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. Well, it's that T-shirt, isn't there? A few people I know have got that T-shirt. It just says, David Lee Roth is Van Halen.
Is Van Halen, yeah. And I have to agree, I'm afraid.
But an interesting choice.
A surprising one for me, because, you know, I'm not really the king of spandex these days. Not like I used to be back in my university days.
I would never have had you down to be listening to 1984 by Van Halen. Good grief, what are you going to be listening to next? The first King Cobra album?
Absolutely not. When King Cobra can do a song like Top Jimmy, that's the day that I'll go and listen to.
Okay.
So there you go, mate. We've rambled on long enough and we've kind of interjected what we've been listening to with some funny old stories. So it's a little bit of a different format today, but one that I enjoyed. How about you?
Yeah, so we still haven't got round to the FM in Malta story.
The joy of these things is that you go off down the highways and byways of rock and roll and pull out some little stories along the way. So FM's been bumped to next week. I'm sure they'll live.
It gives us some more time for you to send more emails to people in that band to see if they want to come on, because you keep getting ignored by them.
So if anyone's listening and anybody knows those bastards out of FM, tell them, answer your bloody emails.
Merv Goldsworthy.
Right, we're going to leave it there, Hunnsy. What do we have to say before we go? We have to say the same old thing.
Yeah, get in touch with us on Facebook. We've got lots of chat going on Facebook at the minute. Some very, very active people on Facebook. So continue that, please. It's really good. There's some good chats going on.
Excellent.
Instagram. Yeah. Instagram doesn't seem to be the platform of choice for our audience, but never mind. That's fine. I still have a bit of a laugh.
Are you not telling them how to get there because they're just not interested?
Well, it's just Hojo and Hunnsy on Instagram. Hojo and Hunnsy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, that's exciting.
And then we are still in the embryonic stage of our Blue Sky account, but you can find us on Blue Sky and come on and into a safe space and be nice to each other and talk about heavy metal. That'd be great.
There you go. I'm going to say it one more time. If you can tell just one person about the glories of Hojo and Hunssy's Hard Rock House, this time next year, we'll be doing exactly the same thing for exactly no money.
Tell someone who you think might like the sound of two blokes wittering on about hard rock, heavy metal, telling stories.
Yeah.
And all
and wishing that they had hair for 5 minutes.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you think maybe you might consider putting a wig on when you perform live with Goats and Trees?
I do when we do our Halloween shows.
Do you?
Yeah. I've got this like long silver wig.
How does it make you feel?
Well, I don't want to go near a naked flame.
That's far too dangerous. Well, on that downer, we'll call it a day. Eh?
Yeah,
We'll be back, same time, same place, 7 days' time, for more rock and roll shenanigans. Hunnsy, as I always say, always a pleasure, never a chore.
Yep.
I'll see you a week today.
I'm off to listen to some Radiohead.
Le Radiohead.
The Radiohead. Yeah. What's French for fuck off?
Fuck off.
See you, bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.